What's your final, I guess, you seemed at times more unhappy than happy this season with the team. What's your final assessment of how it went, and how much of it does it matter if you want to kind of clean house going into next year?
I thought we had some really good progress with our kids. A lot of them were put into some heavy minutes, some key situations. Saw a couple come up at the end of the year, Forster, or a couple of defensemen. So in a year where everybody, I'm sure everybody around us, an atrocious year as far as this, that, the record, not making the playoffs. I don't look at it that way. The way I have to, or the way we have to, Danny and I, and the organization is the step that we were in of the process, and that was going to be losing some games. No one likes doing it, but that's part of it. That's the part we're in right now. But there are some really good things in my mind with how some of our kids progressed.
Is that basically how you had envisioned it last summer?
I don't envision anything. I go about. I don't predict, or I just go about the everyday business, and let it fall where it falls. If we're not happy with some of the struggles or where we're at that particular day, we make corrections. We coach. For coming into the organization for my first year and hearing about the players and then experiencing them, that was really important for me to figure out who they are. I think I've got a pretty good handle as far as some of the personalities of the players, how we go about coaching them in the future. Some players that we just don't think going to be part of it. Those are all things we went through this year. So I had no thoughts about where it would be because I just didn't know the players. I just heard about where the organization was and knew that we were going to have to make some evaluations and, quite honestly, do the process the proper way. And that's dealing with your kids and figuring out which kids are going to be part of it, which kids are trying to find their way to be part of it, and go about it that way.
John, dating back to training camp when we first talked, really dating back to the first time we talked to you, you talked a lot about the idea of setting a new standard, of improving the culture, of building a culture that can win. I know from a roster standpoint, you guys may not be where you need to be to get to that point, but in terms of that standard, that culture, if you had to put a number on it, say like between 1 to 10, where do you think you guys are at after this season?
Yeah, and I don't like using the word culture. I think it's overused. I do think the understanding what it is to be a pro, standard of practice, standard of quite honestly, what accountability means. As I said to you guys when I first came here, it's a great word, but holding people accountable, you find out about people. And I have found out about people as far as people that simply don't know what the word means. And I'm talking about players. Some players just don't want to be held accountable or just can't handle it. That's building a standard. And I guess the way I'll put it is there. And I've said it to you throughout the year, I don't think there are many nights this season, and I don't care what you call us, what you say what our year was, one of the biggest points was how hard we play. I think that's the starting ground of building a standard. There weren't many nights we didn't play hard. So I'm really encouraged with that. The accountability factor, as far as what's expected, as far as play, as far as being a pro, conduct, practice habits, teammate, being a teammate, playing under a team concept. We've got some work to do, and not with all of them, but with a number of our players. And I expected that, and we're going to keep banging away at it. I do. I just, I'm not sure what it, even with you guys, I think when there's accountability with a player, or something doesn't go right and a player is benched or isn't happy, you guys think it's the end of the world. It's part of the process of building accountability. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'm not trying to be vague, but we have work to do. And I think we have work to define that and understand what the definition of accountability is. I think to everybody with the team, in the organization, players, you guys, we're going to continue to try to teach the definition of accountability through actions. And yeah, so played hard, but we have some work to do as far as the mental state of what it is to be a National Hockey League player and what's expected each and every day.
John, before the trade deadline, Chuck Fletcher said that ideally next year you guys would have 2 kids pushing onto the roster. Do you see that as a possibility, or do you think maybe even more kids can try to grab spots?
From the kids that played on this roster, or new kids coming in?
Kids coming in.
Oh, I can see there's going to be competition. There are some veteran guys that I'm hoping kids take their spot. The way it's as I just got through with Danny, as we looked at some of the guys, I think we're going to have healthy competition in all spots. And I think you look at our forward position. I think some kids have progressed nicely there as far as our youth. I think the next spot is defense. I'd like to see some youth come into there and push some people, because there's no locks. Not judged on the overall play of all those players on our back end. There's no locks there, and so I'm hoping some kids come in here. Certainly not going to be given. I'm certainly not going to disrespect the veteran guys and want to get them out of there. But everybody's going to have to earn their spot, and I think as it's another year and you're still trying to go through the process. I'm anxious to see what camp looks like next year with some of the guys that's played down in Lehigh that we're interested in.
A few weeks ago, we chatted about things that surprised you from when you took the job. You talked a lot about gray areas. Now that the season's over, just reflecting on what are the things that surprised you most, and how did that affect what you see as the future for this program, what needs to be done?
Well, I think not a surprise. I think I just touched upon it with Charlie. I still don't think we understand accountability. And what it takes to be accountable. I'll put it to you this way. A coach's job is to hold the player accountable when he doesn't think the player is holding himself accountable. A coach's job is to hold a team accountable when he doesn't think the team is holding themselves accountable. That's a huge part of our job. Bench coaching is very important, putting men on the right spot and all that. But in this situation here, in the process we're in right now, that's one that we're going to have to get better. You can play hard, and we did. But to play under a team concept and to play and be a good pro, understand at least here, you're going to have to accept the honesty and understand that that's all it is honesty. It's not a personal thing. We have a ways to go there. I think we're way too goddamn sensitive out here. And about simply coaching. That surprises me. Not surprised, but that's something that that's something that we're going to have to really grow at.
John, going back to what you said, you've said this a lot this year, but you said a few minutes ago about the idea of subtractions.
Mhm.
Obviously, you're not the GM, you're not making all the trades, and all the trades that you guys want to make, you might not be able to make.
Mhm.
But ideally, are you in your head thinking that you would like to subtract a lot of pieces from this roster? Like, well, I'm not asking you for a number, but
Yeah.
do you envision a lot of players currently on this roster, in terms of where they stand with you right now, need to be subtracted?
Oh, I think there is. What's the word? I'm not going to give you the number, but I think there are people for the organization to move forward. Yeah, and this isn't. Yes, I'll answer that. Yes. I wouldn't say a lot. I said I'm going to say there are people. I don't. Danny and I he finished with his exit interviews. We just had a short meeting here before meeting you guys. That's in concert with Danny. The one thing that, as I said, I didn't plan on it because I just wanted to give my coaches a chance at it. Danny and I had some really good time when I was upstairs. So it kind of moved that process forward. I don't think there's many disagreements between Danny and I as far as the people. But I want to make sure, I don't want you to think it's something, this is, holy crap. This happens to all teams that are trying to get better. And I think sometimes teams get the order backwards and they try to add people before there's subtraction. And that's when you spin in the wheels. That's when you spin in the mud. So yes, there are people that I think need to move on because of the where we're at in our process. If we're in a different situation with this team, maybe some of those guys know, but we're not. And that's going to be in discussions with both Dans, and I met with both Dans today, and these are discussions that we're beginning to have. So, but to answer your question, yes.
How much of accountability is a learning thing,
Yes.
and how much could be just a clash of personalities?
I think it's both. I'm not saying it's both here, but I think it could happen both ways. And I do think when a new coaching staff comes in, I do think there is some time to learn, because everybody has a different. I think every coach, I think every organization, I think every player has a different definition for accountability, and I just think it's human nature. So I'm not. That isn't a bad thing, but when you're in pro sport and the coaching staff is here, we got our group of people. I guess that's the process you're going through and making sure you get that right definition. I think at least a definition how I feel about it. Clash of personalities happens all the time. How do you? The way I feel about it and how I go about it, it's never a personal thing with me when I coach players. Never a personal thing. It is me trying to get the best out of the player I possibly can that plays under a team concept in a team sport. You can try to get the best out of people, but you got to remember we're in a team sport, and a lot of things come into play because of that. So, does that answer your question? Yeah, it comes into play all the time. Clash of personality and the definition, because I think it's different all through the league.
Well, the way you coach, does it come into play with you more so than other head coaches, do you think?
Clash of personality. This is the way I coach. Okay, and I want to kind of define it for you. I coach when I teach. Or when we teach as a coaching staff, I keep on saying it's we teach in a group setting. If I am coaching a player and we're doing our tape, and it's not always bad. Sometimes we're always thinking about the bad stuff when we're coaching, but there's always good stuff too. It's always in a classroom setting. It's in our theater, and if I have a problem with Charlie about his back check, everybody's going to hear about it, okay? You all hear about it because I think it's that important. I used to do the one-on-ones with players, and I think it goes in one ear and out the other. I think when it's in a classroom setting, you've got the inner pressure. I'm giving Charlie crap, and you guys are hearing it. It becomes an inner pressure in the locker room, and where eventually you want the locker room to take over itself, so we don't have to be in there. So to get back to that, it is a group setting, and it's total honesty. Does that cause a clash? Sure, it does. I don't think people. I'm not going to. It's so unfair to the player if I'm not totally honest, and because I don't think I'm doing my job. I think I'm doing the player a disservice if I'm not totally honest. Now, with today's athletes, especially today, I'm not so sure sometimes they want the honesty, because sometimes it's hard to hear, and I get that. But I need to do it because I'm not only coaching Charlie, I'm coaching everybody else, I think, in that setting. Having said that, when a player doesn't like that or needs more information and doesn't feel comfortable coming back to me, and listen, I had some situations this year which were so encouraging and so, I thought it was so good that players, a couple of them came right at me in front of the group, right back at me. And I've got to be ready for that. And because that's I think a coach needs to be vulnerable if he's going to coach a player the proper way. If you're going to be honest with a player, you put yourself in a vulnerable position. I do it all the time. And I've got to be ready. And I had some players come right back at me. But at least he had the gumption to come at me. And then you solve the problem quicker that way because you're solving it as men, and you get to the other side. As long as they know it's not a personal attack, as long as they know that, you find your way through it. And I think that's the best way to get to a player. Players don't feel comfortable in that situation. So I am always available for them to come in one-on-one. TK came in when he was benched. Frosty came in. Tony came in, a number of players came in, and so you go to the next step. I am not going to run around the locker room and look to hug players and have one-on-one meetings. I'm not. I think they understand where they sit when I'm in the group setting. If they don't like it or they need more, door is always open for them to come in. But I'm not going to chase them around the building for them. I think the onus is on them. If they're mad, come to me. If they need some more information, come to me. I got Rocky ready with tape. I've got Shawzy. We're all set to go. But it always will start in a group setting. And I think it is one of the most dynamic and I think one of the most rewarding situations because I think you become closer. And does it cause conflict, as you're asking, with my person? Sure it does. Conflict is not a bad thing. Everybody, it's like taboo. Don't get them pissed off. Oh, Christ, they're mad at you because you sat them. Oh, my gosh, really? If they're not mad at me, I'd be more upset. But that's how you develop relationships. And that's how we're going to go about it. And I did it the other way. It doesn't work as far as at least for me and my coaching staff. And it got me to a better understanding of players. Some in a really good vein for me in my head. Others, I just can see it that it's not going to work.
John, a guy that you
Sorry about the long-winded answer, but I want to make sure you understand that.
a guy that you felt like you were probably going to maybe clash with at times was Tony D'Angelo.
Mm-hmm. Did.
How is your relationship with him, and do you feel like you guys can make it work next year if he's here?
We're and I know that's probably a big topic for you guys. Tony didn't play the last 5 games, so something happened, right? That's going to stay between Tony and I and the team. Yeah. But my job is to make decisions what is best for the hockey team in my job as the coach. And sometimes it causes situations, but that's all part of it. It's the most interesting part to me in coaching is to see how people handle. It goes back to, I'm not sure, it was early accountability. People say, yeah, I want to be held accountable. But when it really comes down to it, some guys don't want to be. And they want a free pass in certain situations. There's no free passes. So, yeah, with Tony and I, that's a situation I think that Tony and I need to work through along with the team,
John, going back to
not publicly.
going back to accountability, you mentioned that even though some guys may not want to be held accountable, that it can be a learning process for them to learn how to
Absolutely.
be held accountable. How do you navigate a guy just never wanting to be held accountable versus like giving him the time and space to learn how to do it before making a call and saying, hey, he should be a part of our future.
It's a great question, and because it happens all the time. This isn't craziness. This isn't trying to pick a fight with a player. This is just simply how you have to coach, and especially when you're trying to build a standard. So I have to use my gut. And is he listening? I like it when players come back at me because at least I know I got their attention and they want to get involved in the conversation. When I get yad and yad again and yabat and yabat, you got to start thinking, well, this guy, you know what? Maybe he's not going to be on the bus with us here because he won't accept. It won't accept it. There isn't a clause in my contract that says I can't coach a damn player, and I can't hold him accountable, whether it be with his play, his attitude, being a good teammate, all the things that come into play in building a standard. There's no clause in there that says I can't do that. I am going to do that, and if players don't like it, they should tell me. And we have an exchange and hopefully build on it. And if they just simply won't accept it, then those are the decisions that we have to make with the management team.
In Chicago,
One
you
of the,
mentioned that you this last stretch gave you some more questions than you thought you would have. One, were those things about just play or also about character? And two, how does that affect you going to the off season? Because I know you said you might feel differently about the training camp.
About the players?
Yeah, the ones that you now have more questions about than you thought.
Yeah, and I'm not going to run through the players with you. I'm not. But I think we've to the end of this year we evaluated, and I found out some really good things about players, some real promising things about players that I wasn't sure where they were a few months ago, and found out some things that, you know, it's just I'm not sure if it can be consistent enough in what we want. So that's the again in where we're at, and we did it right to the bitter end, right to the last game, and sometimes, Gianna, it's just not on the ice. It's all the things that go with it. And do you feel they want to be part of this process? Because we're in a different process than Colorado and other teams, you know. So those are the things you have to feed through too. So in the short time I just spent with Danny, and then in the 2 or 3 games I spent talking with him, we talked a lot about this as far as where guys have gone. And then we'll have more discussions as we get through with the exits and through with you guys and see where we're at as what we think kind of a ghost lineup as projections as far as next year.
Time for a few more?
That kind of leads into a question that I wanted to ask. Basically, you just said that you guys are trying to figure out, maybe who doesn't really want to be here either. You got, there are guys that maybe want to be here, but you might not want them to be here, and
Yeah.
then there are guys that you might want to be here, but they might not.
Yes.
If that happens, are you apt to say, well, if you don't want to be a part of this, we'll find a way to get you out, or
Yep.
is it less? Are you less motivated to do it if you feel like they still have something to provide?
No. I think when a player, and it probably won't come to me, it'll probably go to Danny. Listen, I want believers. I do. I don't think you find your way unless you have believers, and I think you go through a process. Especially this is our first year as a coaching staff. I'm sure it's different for a lot of them. Do they believe? I think we can tell with their actions as we've gone through a long year. That's why I don't have exit meetings with the players. I've been with them through it all, and we've had these conversations. I don't need to hear any more at the end of a year. But the non-believers that don't want to be here, I'm sure that goes to Danny, and I don't want non-believers. I just think it's a really tough piece of ground to start on, in trying to stabilize this organization. There are a lot of players out there. And if one guy doesn't want to be here, again, it's like I've always said, it's not like football. You just move them out of here. It may take time, but I think those are conversations that they're going to probably have with Danny. And I get it. I'm not saying to you guys that I have all the answers, but I'm going to coach this team the way I think is fit. I'm going to coach this team in the way I think this team needs to be coached. And I'm not going to shy away from it. That maybe because some feelings are hurt, or you think there's mayhem in the room, which there really wasn't. You guys think there may be. I owe it to this organization, and Chuck Fletcher gave me a fantastic opportunity, and I love being here. But I feel I know how to coach this hockey club, and when the people above me feel that I've missed the mark, they'll let me know, right? You know, they let you know. That's a coach's job. But I'm not losing sight of because I think of I still think we need hardness in our minds. Not hard player. I just think we need to accept, to be the best you can be, you need to be held accountable. And if you're tired of a coach holding you accountable, I need to hold myself accountable. That's how you build this. And we're at the first stage of that.
Do you feel like you have?
He's been at, please.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
One of the first areas you started emphasizing in camp was teaching the team how to defend better.
Mm-hmm.
Killing plays, preventing plays out of the corners, not losing body or stick position. That was, you and the staff would overrule that again and again and again. It seemed like sporadically during the year that was clicking. Other times it didn't.
Yeah.
How far do you think you got by the end of the year, and how much more?
We need a ways to go. Yeah, we need, and quite honestly, that's why you need to look at our back end. I think we've made some really good progress with our forwards, even away from the puck in that part of it. But I think in our back end, that's kind of the next focus that I'm looking to see kids. And because if we're not, we go back to that word accountability. If we're not going to be accountable, and we don't agree that if you think you're doing a good enough job and you're not going to listen that you're not, then other people get an opportunity. So certainly, I think we've made really good inroads in understanding what is wanted. Is it the right people that are able to do that? That's an organizational point of view we have to talk about. And are the players willing to be accountable to it?
One more?
Oh, just how do you feel? I mean, you sound positive about the overall state of the organization. You feel like the infrastructure is there with Danny, with Dan, with the assistant coaches, that everyone's on the same page, the same path as to how you
Yeah, I do. I'm looking forward to it because I do think I think the biggest thing in the philosophy of what we're doing is we're going to stay with it. And I'm not criticizing Chuck because I'm talking about two Dans and my coaches and all that. It's kind of a new group when we lose a really good man and I think a really good general manager in Chuck. But the biggest thing, I think the biggest point, guys, out of this is when you commit to a process of what we have to do to try to get this right, you can't go looking when there's that guy out there that is a fairly big name and you change course. Let's go get him. We can't change course. We've got to stay the course and let our kids develop. I hope we're younger next year and keep developing our kids. And there's going to be a time when the bigger name is out there. I think we're all in agreement with that. I think that's the most important point here is that everybody believes in how we have to do this. And that's not saying you don't go out and get some players, some free agents, because there are some out there that can fill some spots for us in kind of in backfilling, as I've said, not looking for the top ones. I think backfilling is the most important part of it, and I know that we're all on board with that. And I want to say one other thing as we're talking about an organizational view. The medical situation here. I was alerted to, I'm not sure who wrote it, someone questioned the medical thing. This medical the medical part of our organization has transformed. I know Cam said some things, and I read Cam's. I read through. I had to read it to read through it. I wish he didn't go down that road, but as I read further, he did come back around and talk about the medical staff in the proper way, because they have worked their ass off to get this scab, and not even a major cut that is hung around this organization, to get it right. We're on the right road there. I want you guys to understand that. We are on the right road with some good people. Is it still progressing? Yes. It still needs to be filled in with other people. But our players were looked after. Cam was looked after. There was a misdiagnosis out there in Columbus too. And it happens. People are trying to do the best they can for the athletes, and I know it's been a sore spot here, but is it fixed? It's not fixed yet, but we're on the right road here. So I want to make sure I bring that up. You guys didn't ask that. That's something that has grown tremendously as we've gone through our first year and trying to transform that.